Well, good afternoon, everyone. And this is a continuation from last night. If most of you were here all night, that was the long meeting, so we're still here. I'm glad you did come back.
The close tells me otherwise.
The close tells you otherwise. So, well, thank you and welcome. We're all assembling in here. I would like to go ahead and have talk to Doug Ray. Doug Ray of the Animal Shelter. Would you come on up and take a few minutes? And we have before us, I think Tony has a copy, our legal staff has a copy, and this is expectations of, and you have something to hand out? And let's do that, and then we'll do the stormwater, and we'll get out of here.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds
All
like
right.
a plan.
I only got 2 eggs last night. They were all locked up. They were very.
You'll have enough.
My little girls.
I did hand out something as well.
I want one, yeah, for the record, Doug, thanks.
Okay, that's the same thing as
Border collie.
Okay, Doug, as I understood, and I read all what you gave me the other day, and it is the expectations of how an animal shelter should be run, and I think it's appropriate that we have a discussion about it. It is a recommendation. Is that what we would call it?
Well, it's actually an ordinance. This would be law. I gave everybody 2 documents. The second document is would be the actual ordinance. The first document is telling everybody what it actually is, and briefly I'll talk about what it is. Last year, in January of 2017, I was considering a job offer in another area outside of Canyon City, and I was meeting with 2 donors that turned out to be really good friends. And during that lunch meeting, I mentioned that I was considering this job offer, which I just bought a house, so I'm not going anywhere. You know, we're good. But in January, I was considering it, and the woman for that meeting said, "What's going to happen to the animals at the shelter?" And I'm like, "They'll be fine." I said, "I can't imagine anybody's going to come into the shelter and change things because everything's going good here." And on a drive home that night, I started thinking, well, of my shelter in Maryland. We saved 98% of the animals, and then the following month I received a call from the president of the board saying, we just killed 50% of the animals. How did that happen? And then I think of my job in Phoenix and Philadelphia. And this is hard work, relocating to an area, a brand new area, not knowing anybody, and getting the shelter where it needs to be. So what this does is, this is, on paper, let's say I'm walking home tonight and Preston drives over me with his truck and kills me, you know?
Oh, my goodness.
You're
That-
not
that would
that
be
lucky.
horrible.
Oh, you wrecked one car.
Let's say I'm in the hospital for 3 months.
That's not on public record.
What this does, this says to the new director, this is how the animal shelter should be run. This is the same way we've been running it for the past 3 years. This says to the board, you can't just start killing animals because we've been saving them for the past 3 years. This says to the board that if you do that, you're breaking the law. So what this does is, it's called CAPA. It stands for the Companion Animal Protection Act. And it's being implemented all across the country. Last year, it was introduced in Muncie, Indiana. The entire state of Delaware is covered by CAPA. The entire state of California is, and the city of Austin has passed this. Now, forget the conversation I had with somebody last January 2017. There's really no need for this to go into place. As long as I'm here, everything's going to be fine. We just saved 98.6% of the animals last year. You know, so we're doing a fairly good job over there. I'm getting calls from Pueblo, from Colorado Springs, from Denver, and even got one from Boulder a couple months ago. Talking about their animal shelters. And if y'all know that Pueblo's going through some hard times right now with theirs. Pueblo, in fact, the city council is putting forth this, and their animal service provider is saying, we're not going to do that. In other words, they're not going to do what we're doing right here, right now. So the city council is going to mandate to their provider what they need to do. I, on the other hand, is coming to you saying, this is what we need to do, guys. So there's a big difference between what's happening here and what's happening in Pueblo, what's happening in Colorado Springs, and what's going to be happening in Denver in a couple months. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to hopefully get this approved because the eyes are really on Canyon City right now. Kathy and I were talking recently, and Pueblo is going to be voting on this either at the end of this month or next month, I'm not sure. That's going to affect Colorado Springs. Denver's watching to see what happens with all of this. So I would really like Canyon City to be the first one in the state of Colorado to say yes to this, because all you're saying yes to is what we've been doing at the animal shelter for the past 3 years. There's nothing in here any different than anything else. In fact, this is in this book right here. I'm not smart enough to write this. I did draft it and make it work for our area, but it's 100% not written by me. It's written by an attorney in San Diego who did this. So I guess that's it in a
Okay.
nutshell.
Thank you, Doug. As I understand, Tony, the procedure is our attorneys have it, they're going to look at it.
Yes.
It then comes from, we will then discuss it at council level.
Yes.
And then it'll go to council for action, hopefully, very near
Yeah.
future.
And
Okay?
generally, their opinion, they think it's great that they're establishing a gold standard for the protection and preservation of animals. Their concern is the precedent this would set. You give money to a number of not-for-profit groups, as an example. This year alone, 12. Do we really want to be in the business of codifying as a city the policies and procedures of a not-for-profit organization and hold them accountable under the law? That could include the pregnancy center, the Boys and Girls Clubs, the chamber, the Golden Age Center. I mean, it opens the window and door to, we're now responsible for other people's operations, and we have to review and hold them accountable under the law. That scares our attorneys.
But the entire state of Delaware, the entire state of California has passed this, and it didn't affect them in the way you're saying. So that could be,
Well, I don't think the state of California is contracting directly with ABC, Humane Society. Cities do. So the liability would fall on the local jurisdiction, which would be cities. It's your prerogative, but they just raised that as an issue because that opens the door saying, if the pregnancy center comes in here and says, we want to do the same thing, here are our standards, we want you to codify them, and if there's any future board or director that violates these, you're going to find them in violation of your law, and you're going to prosecute them. Do we really want to be in that business?
Well, let's go ahead and look at it.
Yeah.
Have all of us read it. And Mr. Meisner?
Just general information, it's my understanding that the city of Pueblo has deferred on this particular issue until they can communicate one-on-one with Pueblo County, because that's a joint venture down there, so that whole process in the city of Pueblo is.
Now, an
is
alternative would
currently-
be if the city wants to say, hey, by contract, we will only contract with the Humane Society, whether Doug is there or not, if you adhere to those policies. That's a different route, much safer,
It's still the same end result.
I agree.
Yeah.
Is
without
that-
codifying it as a law.
That's the way
You're
I.
using your money to demand that they meet these high standards.
As part of our agreement,
Well, that's what I was
Yes.
looking, that's how I was looking at it. Is
Yeah.
that, would that be reasonable?
It would create the same
I'm not sure I
benefit.
understand, Tony. I'm sorry, I'm not
If
sure
the
I
city
understand.
would, for example, if we have our annual contract, we would adopt these policy procedures and say, whether you're running the place or someone else, you have to meet these standards, and if you don't get our money. You're in violation of the agreement. Versus codifying it as a law, where now we have to treat any violation as a criminal or civil penalty. I mean, do we really want to take your predecessor
Well-
to court?
As long as this is, yeah. See,
we can
no,
just
I'm
take our money.
I'm
The
serious.
money
If I was to leave here tomorrow and
Yeah.
that board starts killing animals, I hope y'all would have your hands in the air saying, hey, what is going on over there?
They wouldn't get our money. If the council were to adopt these standards, the money would be withdrawn, and they would find a different provider.
Right. Right.
Same with the pregnancy center, the Boys and Girls Club, the chamber, all these examples. You let your money do the talking.
Okay. Mr. Hamrick?
I agree, Mr. Mayor. I think we should take these and read them, take a look at them. I would point out, though, Tony, that there are no enforcement provisions in here, so there's nothing to enforce.
No, but if this is, the policies don't have enforcement provisions, but if you codify that, that becomes law.
it's still not, it still has no enforcement provisions in it, is my point.
We enforce our laws every day.
Yeah.
Your ordinances,
And there are
if
enforcement
you violate
provisions.
them, we're going to take you to court.
Yeah, but that says if you violate this, then you're subject to X, Y, and Z. I don't,
That
says
that
there's
doesn't
none of
contain
that
that
in it.
section.
So I say we look at this and we give it careful thought.
I think
Can-
the attorneys will probably fine tune it and put what we need in there.
Can we save some time and look at our attorney's version versus this? The attorney's got a version?
I don't think, they think this is great. Their concern is the precedent of codifying another organization's policies and procedures and holding them accountable by ordinance.
So fundamentally.
So we have to then get in the business of making sure that they're adhering to their own policies and procedures.
Okay.
We have
Well, the only thing I would say, if we look forward to this, take the word kill out of there. You know, and put euthanize.
Euthanize or-
11 times the word kill is in there. You know, that, to me, you know.
Yeah, it makes it hard to read
If I'm a
it.
pet owner, you're gonna come over and tell me, we're gonna kill your dog, you know, rather than we're gonna euthanize it.
Yeah,
mean,
I-
language means a lot.
You're right, it does, and I don't use the words euthanize, I use the words kill, because that's exactly what we're doing.
I know that.
We're killing
but-
an animal.
But, you know, the word kill,
We're just
I
trying to
just
make it
don't
more
like it. And
digestible
it's
for
in
more
here
people.
11 times.
Right.
Okay.
The
Right.
word kill
Brings
gets
space
your
in.
attention, though, and that's the
Yeah.
whole point of
But I
this.
don't care, I don't like that
Well,
word.
Okay.
No, we
know,
think the actual
Tomato,
policy is
tomato.
great.
Frank wants the rated
All right.
G version.
yes.
Let's try it.
Can I just address that right there?
Okay.
Very
Doug.
quickly?
Gavel.
When
All
I
right.
got
All
here,
right.
Kathleen,
All right.
I'm sorry, when I got here, they used the words PTS, put to sleep. And I said to my board, nothing is being put to sleep here, they're dying. They're not going to wake up again. So from that day on, I've never used the word euthanize because we're killing the animals. I mean, we are. I mean, you know, not out here. I mean, we saved 98.6% of the animals last year, so we didn't have to kill an awful lot of the animals.
Doug, I have just one question.
Sure.
And it's because I have 3 horrible sisters that are on me all the time. In Wichita, they have a sub-community from the Humane Society where at certain points in time where they have animals that need to be adopted, they put them in foster care. I have 3 sisters. They each have right now 4 dogs in foster care.
Sure.
Do we have a program like that?
Well, we do, and there's always one in my house. You know,
Okay.
I just adopted Bobby. He was in our house now for long. But prior to him, I had somebody named Sugar. She was in my house for 6 months. She was very
Well,
hard to place.
I have 5 rescues,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm kind of, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I just wondered if we had that program, and that's through the Humane Society?
We 100% do, yes.
Okay. Okay, because I've got some people that could use a pet,
Okay.
but they don't want anything permanent, so.
Right.
All right.
Interesting.
I don't know, this side over here is having more fun than this side over here, so let's balance it out. Thank you, Doug. Rest assured that it
Thanks,
has
sir.
gone to our attorneys to look at.
Okay.
We're going to work something out that I think
Yeah.
everybody can be happy with.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks for having me, guys.
What's that?
Thank you.
Response this week or next week.
Yeah, we should have a response this week or next.
Okay.
We'll be in touch, all right?
Thank you, Doug, for all that
Thank
you
you,
do
Doug.
for our
Thank you.
animals. We certainly appreciate the shining star that you are in our community and for our pets.
Thank you for making
Trying
us a
our
proud
best.
community.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank your staff, too. Everybody that works there.
Thank you,
Okay?
Lisa.
Thank you.
That one too?
Who? Lisa?
Yeah, we'll thank Lisa, too.
Okay, that's staff, too. All right, we'll do that.
Too much shock value.
All right, moving on to another exciting issue. And we have the 2 exciting gentlemen here to talk about it. It is, sounds dubious at best. Stormwater matters. Stormwater does matter. So how do we open this discussion, Adam? Are we just going to be a free-ranging discussion on it, or
Yeah, so
start off?
today we don't really have a formal agenda for discussion, but next month, I think it's the 21st, the committee meeting on the 21st, we need to bring back the discussion about fees and what we're going to do with stormwater fees. Okay? We finished up water at the end of the year there and postponed the discussion for stormwater after the first of the year. So we're going to be discussing that next month. We need to have that decision made fairly soon thereafter. What was the date on that, Harry? April
1st is the water rate increase, so we need to have the same timing for the stormwater.
Right. So in preparation for that discussion on the 21st of February, we want to, once again, have this discussion on what the needs are, what the issues are, and then just kind of open it up from there and on questions, discussion, that sort of stuff, and what we want to do as far as some of the things that the Stormwater Task Force has discussed and so forth. So in your packets, we included the capital improvement plan, $75 million worth of improvements. We have 4 exhibits, which are a breakdown on the drainage basins. One of them shows the capital improvements per basin. Another one shows the population per basin, all total and inside and outside city limits. Then one of the exhibits shows the property tax that's collected within each one of those drainage basins. And then finally, the number of parcels that are in those drainage basins, also in and out of the city limits. You may recall we had a discussion that 82% of the acreage in the drainage basins that drain through the city is county acreage. So
Is that written somewhere?
it's not in today's packet, it's not written, but we had provided that in a previous committee, that 82% number.
82.
Yeah,
Can you say that one more time?
82%
County property.
total county acreage within the drainage basins.
Well, technically, it's 82% outside the city limits.
Right, yeah, that's true. Yeah, good point,
We're
Tony.
part of the county.
Right, inside and outside the city limits. So, obviously, we have no capital dollars. We have zero. We have exhausted our reserves in doing the few capital projects we've done in the last couple of years. We even had to do some switching around last night, as you know, to get some money for a project to balance against a grant that we're getting from the state to move some projects forward regarding the ditch. So the money's not there to make any improvements. And we have a very little amount of money that we use each year for maintenance. And it's really the stopgap maintenance that we do, the real visible stuff, the emergency type stuff. It's not maintenance like we're going in and replacing storm sewer that needs replaced. It's cutting vegetation in ditches, cleaning out inlets and that sort of stuff. So even the maintenance dollars that we have budgeted aren't enough. So we've been talking quite a bit about what it would take to raise enough capital to do anything. We know even with raising the fees, I can't remember, the worst case option, I think, still even only gained us in 10 years, 32 million or something like that, I think it was, one of the fee options. So, and that was like a 2,000% increase.
It's crazy.
Right. So, we've talked about this, the Stormwater Task Force talked about different options. We all agreed that special district is probably the best way to go. We had approached the sanitation district in incorporating a stormwater service plan into their service plan, and they weren't interested in doing that. So where we're at today is we need to have some fee adjustment now, at least to balance the books and protect the reserves for emergencies. So we know we're probably looking at some sort of increase this year, minimal, to do that.
And that would double the existing fee, just to keep our nose above the water line
Right.
of the budget, keep a balanced budget for the stormwater fund.
We don't know if it's realistic to put together a special district plan for election this fall. I've never been part of that process, so I don't know what time that takes. We could talk with the city attorneys and see if it's possible. The process for that is we have to put together, we have to decide on what the service area is, and I think everyone involved has discussed just using the drainage basin delineation for that. Decide on the service area, develop a service plan, and it's basically a business plan for the district. And then we get that approved by the county commissioners. Once they approve that, we get a petition signed by a minimum of 200 of the potential voters for the formation. It goes to district court approves it, that petition, and then it goes to election. That's where we're at today. So,
What would what do you think, is it fair to ask a question? How, you're looking at an administrative structure, so you would have like this sanitation district has a manager and work people, and is that equal to the size of a sanitation district, or how intense is that?
it would be very similar. That's one reason why we approached the Sand District, because we thought it'd be a good idea to not duplicate that overhead, and have duplicate boards and that sort of stuff. But yeah, it would look almost exactly like what the sanitation district looks like.
But
And
you
they
could,
In-
Mayor, have a model in which you have a independent board of 5 members, and they contract for administrative services, like for Adam, so you can avoid duplication of overhead. Because I think there's not an economy of scale to warrant separate administrators, separate staff. Those are excessive expenses. You know, we have the expertise, we just don't have the money to invest in capital improvements.
So basically, the board would be involved with the budgeting of the money and then
Right.
then farming out activities to accomplish the tasks.
Yes.
Sure.
And they would not have hired employees as sanitation district does.
That would have to be hashed out in the,
Yeah.
in the,
Okay.
in the
But that would
district
be one
plan.
of-
But yeah, they could hire
could.
contractors to do everything.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
But in the election for this formation, you elect the board at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
usually about 5 people.
Yeah, it's 5 people. Yeah.
So you'd have to carefully select a board that the people would have trust in to perform a good job, is that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
When we had our recently, well, actually, I think an important part of that in consideration is one of the benefits of having a special district is that actually it takes away the politics. And so you don't have city versus county versus ditch. And also in our stormwater task meetings, Kevin from the state felt like this could be a really good solution. And also attorneys as well, because not only because it takes out politics, but it also creates more longevity and consistency in employees and leadership.
Yeah.
And so, let's say, as elected officials, we're always rotating through. City administrators also are rotating through. So let's say one of Manny's frustrations is he finally gets headway with an administrator and a council, feels like things are starting to happen.
Yeah.
And then it all changes and
Sure.
he's starting all over again
Sure.
from scratch.
So as a district, the plan stays the same and perpetuates.
And
Yeah.
potentially you could have an administrator or, a president or an executive there that's there for 20, 30 years, an absolute expert on stormwater.
Or they
And
could
so-
contract with a firm, for example, like we contract with our city attorney. There's firms that will do this work, and you're not, again, paying for a lot of overhead, pension plans, health benefits. I mean, because this is going to be a fairly streamlined operation. You want the money going to capital improvements, not staffing, so it'd be easy to design a system where they contract out everything. It'd be cheaper.
And so, at our city-county
Yeah.
meeting, we had a discussion with county about this and, really the need that we have. And they said that they are willing to sit down at the table and have this discussion with us. It would be a very careful discussion. I think boundaries is one of their concern for a district, and acknowledgement that they would have to approve ultimately the district plan for it to move forward. Because this will be a very careful discussion and we really need to have their full support to move forward on this, my gut feeling is we probably wouldn't be ready to have an election this year. It would be a rush, but we absolutely could do a lot of education on the matter moving forward.
Oh, certainly. I think
Yeah.
if we started this spring, and it could certainly happen next year, for sure.
Oh,
And
absolutely. But in the meantime, tons of education would be incredibly helpful.
the other thing the special district does, similar to what it did with the road question, was it lets the public tell us whether it's a priority to them or not. It either is or isn't, and that's their opportunity to speak on it. It opens up a little more perceived transparency as well. I mean, there's still people that question whether we truly spend our stormwater dollars on stormwater, because we do many other things with the city. With a special district, that will be their exclusive purpose. One thing I do want to point out and make sure that everybody understands is this would not eliminate the city's obligations that they have for their own stormwater permit and issues. So it would not make our stormwater costs go to zero. We would still have our own permit, and we would still have some obligations for our own facilities. That being said, there are still ways that the city could contract with the special district to handle some of those things. That's the model that works in the metro area, Denver metro area, with the urban drainage flood control district. They encompass many different municipalities, and they contract with municipalities as well as private entities to do maintenance if their maintenance qualifies or their facilities qualify per their standards. So there's like, for example, there's a hospital in the urban flood control district that has their own private detention pond, but they contract with the district to maintain it for them to their standard. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands we wouldn't just wash our hands of stormwater in the city, that we would still have some involvement and cost there.
Do you know the populations of outside city limits that would be in the drainage basins?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
so
it's
there's,
about 8,000. It's about 8,000 people. The total district would be about 32,000 people. Cities would be 16, and roughly the population outside the city would be 8. So we're
Yeah.
2/3 of the population, and the area outside the city limits would be 1/3.
Right.
The other question I had, go ahead. Well, go ahead, Jim.
Say that again.
Total population of the district would be about 24,000, of which 8 would be outside the limits of the city, and the 16 would be in the city, roughly 2/3. 2/3, 1/3 split.
The other thing is, while we're sitting here, is that I've been around for a long time and been in different committees and everything. It seems as though we've been kicking this can down the road, and this council doesn't want to do that. Just speaking as the mayor, we've got to face this issue, or someone else is going to show us the hard line on how to face it. And I don't think I have that wrong. It's going to happen that the stormwater getting into the Arkansas is going to have to be controlled in some fashion. And whether we're going to do it or the federal government's going to come and make us do it, which probably is not very palatable. Am I wrong in that assumption or not?
No, that's true. And it also isn't just that. There's actual risk to our
Sure.
constituents, to our commerce. There's risk there.
Right. We
And,
see
and
it.
that's even worse than any threat that we would have from a federal government.
We see it
Well,
every
that
summer.
And a
Right.
potential lawsuit from the dish company as well. Although that is currently off the table because the state is requiring their cooperation to move forward on this study, it's still hovering in the air.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. Adam, if, in the future, when you provide us a table like this, could you have an acronym table somewhere on this? For instance, RCBC?
Yeah.
What does that stand for?
Round boxes with.
Reinforced
no ground.
concrete box. Yeah. Box culvert, reinforced box culvert, yeah.
Reinforced box cover?
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's helpful in itself.
I have the
And
same question.
I feel I'm kind of catching up here because don't think I've, heard a lot of the discussion about this, but what is the driver for this? What are we being driven by? Are we being driven by best management practices, numeric limits? What is the driver for all of this economic activity that we're looking at here?
I'm not sure I understand your
You
question.
mean
So-
the requirements for this?
Yeah, why are we doing this?
The MS4
Well,
permit.
we have a permit. We have an MS4 permit. Are the permit requirements best management practices, numeric limits?
No,
Where-
we currently have no numeric limits, so it's best management practice, yes. But the capital improvements that we're talking about are aside from our permit requirements. Okay, we are meeting our permit requirements, okay, with the current budget. That's all we're doing. But no, yes, it's best management practice. There, like as Ashley said, there's constant threat of numeric limits. The more complaints, third-party issues, the more we have the state down here poking around, that's when they start looking at numeric limits because they start testing things and finding, and so there are communities in Colorado already that have numeric limits, but we currently do not.
So best management practices, but really what the driver is, so my question is, does the county have a MS4 permit?
They do not.
They do not.
They do not.
So they're run on that we don't have any way for them to comply with best management
We do,
practices?
we do. So the way, everyone, the law applies to everyone as far as the only thing you're allowed to discharge is water, nothing in it. That law applies to everyone. But for the federal government and the state government and for us, we all permit our subjects to the extent that we think they are priority. So that's where the population came in for phase 1 and phase 2 permitting. So the question has been asked on whether the county urbanized area around the city meets those conditions. The state has said, we're busy enough as it is. We're not interested in analyzing that. It doesn't, on the face, it does not meet the conditions. If you want to petition us as the city to the state, we'll take a look at it. The other recourse is district court. We have the right to sue the county for discharging to the city's MS4 permit area. Nobody wants to go that route. That's not an easy route to go. And it won't necessarily solve the problem. Sometimes that gets people's attention. That's why the City of Colorado Springs is doing things now.
So, but there's
The only reason.
there's permit requirements and best management practices. But then part of what we're talking about is maintenance on ditches in terms of like weed burning and stuff like that. And that's just to prevent things from getting out of control, is that, I mean, what?
That is to maintain the ditch for its actual use, and that is part of the requirement of the permit. You have to maintain the facilities you have. So in cleaning the ditch, you're protecting the capacity of that ditch.
Does anybody on council here experience any flooding issues?
Oh.
Yes.
Formerly,
I mean,
former
Yes.
house.
you know, whenever, you know, I live in the 9th Street Basin, and, you know, we get one of those summer downpours, and my garage is flooded. So I'm experiencing that thing that many people are out there, because we are not diverting that water or holding that water on the 9th Street Basin, and that's a minor problem compared to Orchard, and as you move eastward, where there's, well, anything south.
Yeah, and
So-
the entire neighborhood of Dawson Ranch is a failure of stormwater. Is that right?
It has its own set of issues, yes.
The whole
And
city.
yeah.
they are very upset about it, but once again, that pales in comparison to what other neighborhoods are experiencing within Canyon City.
Yeah, the characteristics of the problems are different neighborhood to neighborhood, but every neighborhood in the city is affected.
Our shop down on Highway 50 seems to get, that seems to be where the water just flows
All along there.
Yeah, it's just
in a storm. And there's,
copious amounts, I mean, it's just.
it's
Yeah.
unbelievable. And the sludge and the muck, and it just creates a huge mess.
I've cleaned out the storm gutters along 9th Street when I lived there. Got lectured by a couple city employees that I'm not supposed to be doing that.
Is there,
Yeah.
well, I hate to talk about liabilities, just as Ms. Gonzalez said, is there liabilities for this water, say, running into her shop and ruining things in there? Is that a possibility, or are we exempt from that?
No, I mean, the liabilities come from when we build something
Okay.
with neglect
Got
and
it.
then have caused that problem. But
Okay.
water runs downhill and she's at the bottom of the hill,
That's,
that's nobody's fault but all of ours.
It's a whole separate court system.
well,
Yeah.
I was just
Just
wondering.
for water liability.
From where I live in Allison, the water was pretty high, and I liked the gondolas going by, were neat. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Adam, how much time do you think you and your staff spend just on stormwater cleanup?
When it, you know, anymore, a small, a 1-inch rain plus is a big enough event to make a mess. And the last event we had last year, I think Public Works had 4 days into it, and that wasn't counting our contractors' time. But that was just getting the streets cleaned up. That wasn't going back and fixing things.
No, you were in
That was
Dawson
just,
Ranch
that
for a
was just
couple
getting mud
weeks.
off the roads.
Yeah.
And can you repeat again, if we were to fund all of our projects, what would the stormwater rate be? Did you say that number, or?
No, we didn't, I don't even think our consultant calculated that number,
that's
because
just
when they plugged in and
ridiculous.
exploded,
So what was
yeah.
the number that you had given
I-
that was already just
Do
outrageous?
you remember that? I thought one of their plans covered 65 million.
I thought it was 75.
No, it wasn't that high.
54 is what I remember, and
Did you? I remember
Hey,
75.
Well, that was our total capital budget at that time, but they never calculated a fee based upon that total. It was less than that. We have it upstairs. We'll send it out to you right after this
Yeah.
meeting, but it's an astronomical
Right.
increase that we know feasibly would never be tolerated. At best, just to get to a balanced budget for this year, we would have to double the rate, and that will be controversial.
If we have to go it ourselves, could we actually do that without going on and putting impoundments in the county outside of city limits? Or does it have to be like a,
If we had to address our stormwater needs,
just ourselves, just the,
we
Yeah,
have
so-
fiscal capacity to do it.
I know, we
Yeah, so
don't.
we just completed a study
Mhm.
and did a preliminary design on the Northeast Canyon Basin.
Okay.
And that was for constructing 3 basins at the city limit or into the county, similar to the Orchard Pond. And the price tag for that was $12 million.
Is that included in the 75?
It's included in the
Yeah, that's
75,
within
yeah.
that number.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
typically, on a typical year, we're only averaging about 300,000 in capital. And what Adam's been doing is he'll roll that over for a couple of years, and then he'll do something significant, but we're not even making a dent in that that number, 75 million, will continue to grow. It's insurmountable.
So for example, I think, was it the North Basin where we had received a grant for $8 million? And we wanted to move ahead to do that project, and we had that money given to us from the state, and then the bid came in at $12 million.
No, the federal cap, we had intended to apply for the grant, but the federal cap was $4 million. So we had to have 8 to match.
We needed to have $8 million
Yeah.
to match it.
Right. And that was if we were successful with the grant.
So
We'd
that's
have to
even
save
worse
for
than
over
the-
25 years to achieve just that.
Well, hey, there you go.
Adam, I did have a question. On the Abbey Basin, it said there was a, let me see, Abbey Basin, a $19 million plus dollars project. What project would that entail?
So the Abbey Basin was built in the middle of the stream, so those are projects upstream and downstream. The biggest project to solve flooding problems in that basin is to correct the drainage under the railroad tracks at Rhodes Avenue by the Humane Society, and then correct that along Rhodes Avenue. So that's the most expensive fix there, because the Humane Society floods every time it rains. And the reason is there's a restriction, a big restriction there at the railroad tracks at East Main Roads.
And I had another question from a constituent yesterday at a stormwater, or at a ditch annual stockholders meeting. And she asked, with us building new roads from the 2A street project, why can't we also address stormwater on those newer streets? I said we don't have money because the 2A only can go towards streets and not stormwater.
Right.
Do you have any
As-
other answers?
No,
Or
that's
are there-
the best answer, and as it is, we spent more money last year out of the stormwater fund than we really had to fix the minimal stuff that, we tried to make sure there was a new culvert under everything that we paved over the top of, and that exceeded our original estimate for stormwater, and that has to come out of the separate fund.
How, let's say if you project, looking at the streets that would be done in 2018, are there stormwater issues on those streets that would need to be addressed?
No, that's one of the reasons we fixed those streets, or we picked those streets is because we don't have things to do there,
Remember
thank
that
goodness, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's a broader discussion for the 2A stuff, but, and I've had to have that conversation with numerous people, but we're not necessarily fixing the worst roads first because of some of those issues.
What about with the new development of schools, the 2 new schools that are going in? I know the corner right there on at Washington Elementary, 9th and College, boy, that gets really hard to cross. Is there any kind of plan to put drainage in there?
The only thing that will be able, well, we'll have some effect on, school districts are a little different for construction because they're permitted through the state instead of us. But we can control them on some land use things. They will have to address their site stormwater, which they don't do today.
Okay,
But that'll be minor to this bigger picture we're talking
Sure.
about. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes?
So 75 million total. We have a call out of each project. How do you prioritize that now? And I want to broaden that question, not just now, but how should we prioritize these expenditures going into the future?
Sure. Well, currently, the way we do it is how we can tie it to other funding. So the only available funding outside of the city for this is federal FEMA dollars. And federal FEMA dollars have to have a cost benefit for people who are paying for insurance policies. So that's why the Northeast Canyon Basin was priority, because that's where the most of our constituents are that are policyholders. So it would reduce their risk and reduce their policy cost. So that's currently how we do it. With the advent of 2A, that would be the next logical step is, okay, where are we protecting other infrastructure? And again, it's matching dollars. We're going to leverage money together. So that's how we currently do it, is we see what other money can be leveraged, and that's where we put it. If money weren't an option, you would look at where the greatest impact is and who gets hit the hardest when it happens. Ashley mentioned Dawson Ranch. To date, and I know there's people out there that say otherwise, but to date, no one has yet brought us any evidence of any structural damage due to stormwater in Dawson Ranch. Do they get their landscaping destroyed? Yes. Does it make a mess of the roads? Yes. Does it plug the culverts? Yes. But no one has had their home flooded with stormwater. That has provided evidence to us to date. So that to us, from that standpoint, is not a risk necessarily priority for us. But there's an economics. If we're up there cleaning roads every time it rains in a minor event, then that might push it further up the ladder if we're spending taxpayers' dollars cleaning roads every time it rains a half an inch.
And maybe an additional answer to your question, John, is that the study that we just approved funds for last night with Atkins, that the CWCB is requiring. We've also asked in that scope of services that they provide us a list of their top priority projects that we should probably focus on in the beginning for the Stormwater Task Force meeting. And we're going to also take that study and work on that Stormwater Task Force meeting with the master plan, which would take some more time, but that's why we wanted some top priority projects that we could look forward to maybe collaborating with the county to accomplish.
Are those priority projects there relative to the entire flood issue, or only to removing the water from the ditches?
Only to the ditch, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Those priority projects would only they would select the priority projects that would minimize or take water out of ditches.
Correct.
But those,
Not-
but those spots are likely spots that also affect people's properties.
But when we take that water out of the ditch, it's got to go somewhere.
Right, and so part of the criteria in that discussion will be, how does that fit into the greater plan? For example, part of the problem with the Abbey cross connection with the ditch and the drainage, of course, as we discussed, impacts downstream at the Humane Society. So if we can, if that becomes a priority spot there, because of the ditch and to protect the Humane Society, then it's a win-win.
Okay.
Adam, have you looked at the figure yet with regards to the stormwater increase, just to continue to maintain what we have to maintain, and then looking at a specific project that you think is reasonable to add in with a stormwater increase?
That's part of the problem. So with the, what's really seems to be a modest increase as far as dollars collected is a huge increase to each parcel owner. And so the status quo option was, it was only going to raise us $4 million in
Right.
10 years.
Yeah.
So what are you going to, as we discussed, we need $8 million now to do the one major project for the Northeast Canyon Basin.
But then the next level of adjustment was just like the water. It was,
Right, and that was,
Yeah.
and that was 12 million over the 10 years.
12.5 million.
Yeah, over the 10 years.
right.
The
And that's still
expenses-
over doubling, am I correct? The stormwater fee is what
Oh,
it
yeah.
stands now?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that was more than that.
Expense is so big, I think we have to continue looking for some federal or state grants, you know. There are lots of grants out there, but we have to dig through and find something, you know, that can help us. And that's a long-term program.
But compounding is the federal government's talking about making serious reductions to FEMA and EPA and all these programs we relied upon.
Yeah.
So it's going in the wrong direction for us.
Right.
I don't think we can accomplish this big capital for the, you know, from the revenue what we are getting or the rate increase. We have to have some outside source, you know, the grants, and from, particularly from federal, in order to accomplish this, you know.
Sure,
Is
you
there
don't
any-
have any money under your desk?
Is,
There is nothing.
is,
Sounds like he's looked already.
is there any, soil conservation service, does that have anything to do with this at all?
You know,
No.
they, when we talked with Rick Romano, their money, they had money back in their glory days, but it's dried up. And even the little stuff they do now is basically helping farmers and that sort of stuff on some of the irrigation stuff. But Rick, I mean, he gave us, right before Rick Romano retired, he gave us one grant program that we could take a look at, but they're not big dollars like that.
Yeah, and he even gave me the impression that they haven't found his replacement yet, and they might not get one or something
Yeah.
along those lines. That
Right.
They're really cutting.
Okay, let's talk about next steps. Do we want to do that? Or everybody talked out? Let's do that. Let's see, well, can we, is that fair? To talk, well, maybe we should have our next steps. What do we want to do next? And let's prioritize that and get out of here.
Well, I mean, my thought is that we need to, we need to pick a rate
Yes.
and try to swallow it and move forward. I mean, we can't continue like we have been.
No.
It's obvious. We've got to choose a rate and say, this is what we're going to do, just like we did with the water. I mean,
That's right.
So is that what we're going to do first? Choose a rate, Mr. Gill.
My thought is, we need to find out whether this district is going to go through so that we know how many players there are, and then we can come up with a more realistic number to fund this.
Well, the
Right
dist-
now, the assumption is it's all going to be on Canyon City residents. And I think the big goal is to bring in some of the county stuff too. Is that, am I incorrect in that, or am I correct?
Well, that's what, the direction we want today, so.
But that's going to take a lot of
So-
time
but
to
so one
accomplish
idea-
that.
so
That's
one idea is
another
you-
year.
Yeah.
That's
Minimum.
another year
That's
down
not
the
a quick
road.
solution. It's a
So
solution, but
let's
it's
get a
down the
rate-
roadway.
Let's get a
But this has
rate
been a
going
problem
now.
for 80 years.
Yeah, but we got to do something with our
No,
fees
I
right
know we
now.
need to move forward, but we need to have a plan. And I honestly, just my opinion, is that we need to find out how many players are going to be at the table so we know what the ante is. If we're going for the district, I think we ought to focus our energies, and this is just personal opinion, focus our energies on doing the district, finding out what needs to be done. As a stopgap, we have provided, what, 55, or how much did we provide to help clean the ditches out during an event? How much money was that?
Well, you guys committed 50,000 or something.
Okay,
like
so
that,
that's going to help by keeping those ditches clean. Then let's move forward with the district, find out how many players, so that Canyon City residents potentially are not paying for all of the improvements or all of the maintenance costs. That's just my thought.
but.
I think,
Don't,
I'm sorry.
go ahead, Kathy.
I was just going to say, I think we need to set a rate now, whether it's only Canyon City residents or not. Let's get a rate set. Let's explain to them why it's just Canyon City. Let's put some of it back on the county and
That
let
works
them
too.
step up to the plate
That works too.
and answer, and let's get something going now, so that a year from now, if the special district goes through, we've got it. If it doesn't, we're not sitting there with our thumbs in our
With nothing
ears.
accomplished, correct.
So we
let's-
get something going now.
Okay, sounds like we want to work on rate.
Well, so let me,
Yes.
let me say this, and we'll bring the consultants coming back when we come back to the next committee meeting with fees. But as we've discussed, already, if you double the rate, it won't produce capital dollars.
No.
It'll
So
cover what we're spending now.
it'll balance our books and bring us back into the black a little bit, so.
Which we need to do.
Right. So I think what Mark's saying is if you tripled, quadrupled the rate, it wouldn't be enough to build into these projects anyway. So
No.
then you're just making people mad.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is let's look at the rate to do the minimum necessary to get us back in the black. But then we need to move forward on this special district and not just keep talking about it.
Right.
Let's start doing it.
Well, yeah, let's
And
start
we
doing
can,
it.
one thing we
Let's
need to
start
incorporate
with
in that.
something,
Right.
And you're going to have to get everybody's attention somehow.
And there's going to be a cost
So
involved in
let's
that.
raise the rate a little bit and get everybody's attention. And once we educate them, like we did 2A, once we educate them and say, you may not be having water in your basement. Your cars may not, your garage door won't be warped with water. But, 30% of your neighbors are, and this is a problem. Get it going small. You can start the ball downhill with a little P. And it doesn't have to be a massive amount, but we need to get something going.
Yeah,
So
I
that this
agree.
time next year, we're not sitting here with our, gosh, that keeps coming in with I don't know where.
I think an education campaign is going to be extremely important.
Yes.
in
So we
this
should make sure this
coming
fee
year.
increase includes some cost
Some-
for district formation.
It includes cost for
Yes.
district formation and also costs for what it really should be.
Yes.
I mean, like I said, I think we need to have a pretty thorough education campaign.
Did you hear that,
And-
Carrie?
Mr. Gill?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr.
You're
Gill?
you're number one or two.
Mr. Gill?
We'll get Christie going with you because she can smile real cute.
I have a big concern. We have gotten 2A. We have gotten the school tax. We have raised this, we have raised the water rate, all within the past year. My
Amazing.
personal opinion is that going for the special district with the money that we have allowed for cleaning the ditches and stuff, going forward with the special district will allow the people to finally recover or have some idea that they're recovering and find out that, something, this didn't hurt my lifestyle too bad, rather than increase. Oh, and by the way, we need some more. Personal opinion.
This-
Mark, I do agree with you on that. I feel, I think if we work on the special district ahead of time, we're getting our community on board.
And we've also dedicated money to help clean the ditches to alleviate some of the flooding
Yeah,
that's
that's already
caused by
been-
debris clogging the gates.
I don't
That's
know
a
how
baby
much
step. That's a bigger step
flooding
that's
it
been taken in
alleviates.
15 years.
I don't have a problem with what you're looking at, but that's not going to change the situation down the roadway. Down the roadway, we're still going to be looking at a problem with regards to, yes. So I say, let's go ahead and do what we need to do.
Okay?
Don't forget about looking forward for the special district.
Okay.
But if there's money needed to be put in with regards to that,
Right.
that needs to be taken into consideration. And also, we need to look at with regards to what it's going to take dollar-wise to
fix
educate
it.
the public.
Sure.
But we need to bite the bullet now.
Okay. And like I said, this was an opinion, that's your opinion, and it's like, okay, I
Well-
mean, it's
Okay.
all
Well,
open topic
compromise.
conversation.
The thing I have to say about that is what Adam had said, that it's not going to make a huge dent in the production efforts, in the, what is it?
Capital.
And fixing it.
It's,
Yeah.
so I think it's more important that we get our community involved to, go ahead, Jim.
Well, I think one of the things that could possibly happen, one, we've got to make an adjustment from a legal standpoint of covering that fund and not covering that fund through the general fund.
Yeah.
We've got to make that step. But as we show some increase to get it in the black, it will generate some negative conversation, but also the opportunity for some positive conversation. And the big picture, we know, isn't the stormwater fund, it's the district. We've got to get that district created in order to make this whole thing feasible. And if we can accomplish that through conversation, because the rates have gone up, you know, I think we can, make some positive conversation just with a rate increase in terms of educating people about the big picture. And the big picture is the district, and making that realistically an election issue in November.
Yep.
For anybody that wants to be involved in that, that's going to be impacted, that needs to be part of a platform for anybody running in November.
2019?
19. That's an election.
That's the
19.
19.
Yeah. I don't think we'll make it this year. I just don't.
I don't think, I think you're
So
right.
Adam, you're looking
You
at.
don't think
at-
what,
at
Adam?
an-
I didn't hear you.
That we could get it formed this year.
You're looking at
No,
an
I doubt that.
increase
I
and
doubt
bringing
that
that
for sure.
feedback to a general government meeting or the vision committee on February 21st, or March,
March 21st.
and then it would have to
It'll
go.
go to the next council?
No, it'd be
February
February
21st.
February
February
21st.
Be February.
Then you'd have first reading at the March first meeting and a second reading in the March, and then it'd be effective,
That's it.
April
April
1st.
1.
So it's
So
going to be a
that gives them
very,
some time.
Right.
Okay. So
and
you're
they would at
gonna,
least get an increase on the books.
you're gonna put some numbers we can look at. I know we probably have
Yes.
already seen them.
Yeah.
It's
but-
pretty
but
straightforward.
We'll tweak them based on today's discussion.
Think down if we'd had better education, we'd
If,
gotten that
if,
passed.
if you guys are trusting us today that
Yes,
6, 7, 8 scenarios that aren't going to generate enough to do any capital, but are just going to triple, double, whatever their fees, if you're comfortable with us abandoning that idea today, we'll get you that minimum that we think is required to get us in the black and help with the formation of a district, and that's what we'll bring you on February
Yeah,
21st.
that's what we need to do.
Is that,
that's good.
is that okay with
That's
everybody?
good.
That sounds
Yep,
good.
yeah.
Okay, we're gonna try the head nod.
Yes.
All right.
That will work.
That's precedence, right? Okay.
That'll make
Is
the
that enough?
discussion really
Yeah.
simple.
Let's do
I mean,
that.
yeah,
Then
we've had enough.
We would suggest you then schedule the next meeting with the county commissioners to seriously discuss the formation of a district.
I agree,
Yep.
I agree.
So can you add that on our agenda? We have a stormwater task force meeting coming up pretty shortly, don't we?
Next week, I think, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we need to add that to the agenda.
Okay.
Okay,
If you
and
don't
there,
mind taking the lead on that, that'd be awesome.
who's on that committee?
Me.
And Jim.
We've been
I
scheduling
know
them
you
at
are,
3
but-
so that Jim can attend.
But
Yeah.
we have county commissioners, we have, who are the attendees besides you?
The ditch company?
Ditch company?
Yeah, we have representatives from the ditch company, we have UCOG, we have NRCS, we have Jim, Ashley,
And usually Tim
the
Payne's there,
county.
sometimes the other
Yeah, depending, the
commissioners.
county sometimes sends 4 or 5 people and sometimes
Good.
one person.
Their engineer has been coming to the
Good.
last couple of
Yeah.
meetings.
So I think it's imperative that they be there as well, so we can do
They
that.
have been, yeah.
Oh, they have, yeah, oh, you're right, you're right. Okay, we've done the head knob, we have gone ahead and, we're gonna get some numbers, and, everybody ready to end it up? Okay,
Good.
we're adjourned then.